think there's anybody for public comment, but I'm gonna turn that over to Tanya.
For the public hearing?
Yeah.
Well, unless we have people who want to make public comment. We don't have any public here yet, so we'll just hold it open for that half hour.
We're gonna be open for a half hour, correct?
We can talk first.
So now you can continue your conversation. Good morning, Dr. Lagus.
So the Cliffs, the English Channel.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so it was the first ever Army Ranger D-Day. Scaled those cliffs. And sir, 100 feet straight.
Yeah.
And they get to the top, there's barbed wire, German bunkers. Yeah,
Good ear.
the bunkers are still there, all the big bomb craters
Yeah.
are still there. And you just think
Yeah,
about
that's the hospital.
men being so young and
Yeah.
cold and wet.
I'm scared.
And scared,
Yeah.
and just the courage.
Yeah.
And the bravery.
To go do that. Anything.
Go on with it.
My husband and I,
To do it.
just
On the calendar.
there
they
and
will.
You got a long final.
Yeah, well, you're-
pretty good. The airport on the way home, Charles de Gaulle was, I found it to be
Yeah,
very
something that
disorganized.
we're
It was
discussing.
very, very busy.
Yeah.
We did one line, get to the front of the line, and tell us we had to go in another line. And my husband needs a wheelchair, so getting a wheelchair for him was a big hassle. It's easy and it's a city.
Yeah.
But there, that was a big
Well,
hassle.
They
Separate
are on the
area.
calendar this afternoon after.
To wait there for the wheelchair. I suppose there was,
You have any suggestions?
and it was frustrating.
Go to work, like,
We sat in there for close to 2
Well,
hours.
I think-
And the
Yeah,
whole, you know, and
I
then
think
I was at 3:30.
Today's our
and
only
then
walk-in clinic.
We had been for
So this
security
Europe
yet.
is
We
98.
didn't know where our gate was.
Got the rest of this week.
I could
So
ask.
I don't know your residence.
Friday night.
I was still very.
I was there. Yeah.
You know, and it's hard for
Yeah, well,
people
the staff are,
to wait.
Daisy, because I'll be.
It gets a lot of anxiety.
I don't know if I have liberty to tell you what to do.
Things that's hard for him.
But
Dog down.
and
In
stuff.
restaurants, in retrospect, so whatever. But when you got back and it had to be just an inspiration for him especially.
Yeah, it was just amazing, and you know, and then the French Europe invaded lines and
Oh, yeah.
pictures of him in front of the Eiffel Tower and
Yeah.
yikes, you know, I think about what those people have been through and
that
then I learned a lot too. I didn't know a lot about Charles de Gaulle and the French resistance.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
hour 30 that.
there's no guarantee.
That's where the tunnel for
Yesterday, I
Princess
thought-
Diana died.
Oh, my.
And they still, people still leave flowers there.
Wow.
That's it.
Some photos, went through
I
there,
have no
went to the
intention of
Louvre,
getting the vaccine.
So this will be.
went to the big Concord Square.
Oh.
Yeah.
Where they had the public execution, they executed Marie
Well,
Antoinette.
yeah, November, well, now I'm
And then,
actually.
we were walking around.
And I'm like, okay, because yesterday I told her, hey, you're driving, great, yes. And she was more, she's like,
Barriers.
Days later, they
Soldiers.
were in a yard
Oh, sure.
We walked by there and I
with
said,
fever
"What's
and
going on?"
positive for 6.
I said,
They were, so they were
"This is the
potentially
American resistance."
Oh.
I said, oh, what do you guys do
asking the
with it?"
virus.
You know,
Wow.
Yeah.
My grandfather was born and raised in House and Lorraine.
I'm gonna start rumors.
I'm gonna get that grief.
But you also fast.
We all have masks. Stations have on.
There's a great grandparent
Right.
that's from the northern.
She's been vaccinated. She's-
About 2-3 hours north of there.
Have you talked to them?
No,
Anyone
picture you,
talked?
but-
10%.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he just
It was
got me
nice.
on the email.
The date was
He just said,
3 hours.
oh no, he wanted a test.
And that we did with the tour guide. We hired a tour guide to do that.
My grandfather was Nicholas Pierre
Yeah.
Bonaparte.
So we have the scrimmage and.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody back when they came to
Should we
the
try that?
world,
Plan to leave.
I had-
every religion, every nationality, they went by the King's Bible and they had their family history in the front of the Bible.
Oh, yeah.
And
I think it's a great idea.
so
I was gonna ask you.
You didn't have to feed me. don't know.
He had, my dad's first cousin.
Pork chop in every can.
My son Joey just organized this
Spam?
family reunion. So, there's a cousin down in Boyd.
I think that's great.
Yeah, we're gonna do our test run, we're not ordering it.
He brought it up and I saw it. And everybody's eyes and Napoleon was, it was Nicholas Pierre and Napoleon was his brother.
Oh.
This Nicholas was married to Ulla Fleur and they had 4 kids. And Napoleon was married to, he was married twice.
Is there any incentive? It looks like a tap.
And on the passport. And
They were giving away free
Change.
beers for something.
an option to.
At least get a mask
free,
on, right?
which
Yeah, yeah.
at that time meant
I just,
But Nicholas, Pierre,
Well, I went there for the meat raffle.
Oh.
I pronounce it
Got the
bottom
meat
right,
raffle,
it's
and
easier in
Yeah,
American right.
yeah.
That was
Anyway, I
the
went to it
most interesting.
and I spent money and I did not
Yeah.
want any meat.
Oh, that is
They
it.
came over in 1850.
expensive chunk of meat, because you put it
Got
in
a
$2
homestead,
at
they
crack.
It's $5
That was signed by the
All I
president.
know- all I know is-
Abraham
and then you get 5 tickets. You have a chance.
Wow,
That's all I know.
that is
Holly
interesting.
Webster.
Mine were all later.
One.
They didn't come over here till later on,
Other ADA.
late
Kid from the
1800s.
Boston one.
But I've never really, and then my mom was all German,
Um,
my grandmother was all Irish.
Yeah,
And I just got Facebook here.
I don't have time to call.
Picture of
All I
my
call
great grandfather,
having some
they
pain.
had still down in Stanton,
uh-huh.
Easton, Richmond.
And
My daughter Connie and I.
So we got everything.
This is unrelated, pain unrelated.
Yeah.
We got one ready to
Get
go.
off the plane. they take
Seems like a nice-
you
So it's two.
and
Especially if they're
you look up
Well,
any history.
especially if they're-
at the table.
Not vaccinated, but.
And on this headstone, it says,
Am I gonna need a booster? 'Cause I have the
Thomas
Johnson
Patrick
Johnson.
Carr, born as a native of North of Ireland. What that means.
Oh,
is
my
that
mom said in Florida,
That means he was born.
they're saying that boosters for everybody, boosters for the Johnson and Johnson.
November.
And you're gonna have to get
Area.
your booster will be
Right.
during a.
I had a right.
Okay, so that's like.
These people were like Scotch Irish born in Scotland, raised in Ireland.
Regional.
And then they came, that, they said,
Oh,
I think you would have gotten.
how's they come to the United States, from Ellis Island or from Canada?
Well, that's not all, we don't know.
My husband's family.
NPR is saying
And
that.
then he said, well, everybody in this area had to come. to
Pfizer,
Canada.
they're seeing all this evidence of just changes.
My husband came
Down, but it was interesting.
This was on
because
NPR, so I
his
actually believe it.
My husband's grandparents were born in Ireland.
I was like, oh, great.
And, Galway, in a little town called Carroll.
Yeah, me
We
either.
were there, we went there and visited with them.
How many years ago?
Today,
So it's probably 15 years ago we were there. Yeah, and his,
Did he get around
So-
good then?
so Ella.
he could get around better, yeah, a lot better than he
And
did
no,
now.
then he was.
He's in a home now.
Yeah.
School. I'm not so worried
Which
about
one?
high school.
And
About
Good
elementary
Sam,
school,
where nobody's called
Those are vaccinated.
rehabilitation.
All these kiddos that are going into the hospital. like,
But,
there's a lot
yeah,
of
it was a lot of
hospitalized.
maybe 17 years ago, but yeah. And I just drove, I rented a little road.
I mean,
I had to shift
it's
with
a
my
head
left
You
hand.
haven't seen that?
Did you drive it
Here,
on
no,
that
it's all
side?
Florida.
I shifted with my right, yeah, I drove, yes, I drove on the left
I
side.
never saw one truck in Ireland. They have some of these truck vans,
Yeah,
but I never saw
But
any
not being
like
hospitalized. Not
semi.
Because
There's
my
none
mom
of
said in
that.
Florida,
we stayed pretty much,
there's hospitalizations of kiddos.
we didn't do any tour things because I was the tour guide. I just set it up, but one bread and breakfast we stayed at, when we got up in the morning to have breakfast, this beautiful young woman was serving us breakfast. Because she had just flown, her parents owned the building, and she had just flown in from the States, she was the lead dancer with Riverdance. But her dad made her come home, go back, start college again in the fall, because dancing isn't forever, he said.
Probably right.
We met some, at another community we stayed at, the guy who owned it
They're walking.
was the coach for the Irish Olympic boxing team. And he has, they all tell stories. I mean, he had,
Oh,
you know, stories. And then we were at his brother's house, so my husband's great uncle. And the wife asked me if I would like a punch. And I said, oh, sure, thank you, because she had invited the other brother over and all the family, and we were meeting around. New, she comes up with this glass of black Irish whiskey with a stick of cloves in it.
Ben,
And I thought,
Well, there were several days.
I'm not much of a drinker. Much.
Like the supervisor.
I got sick one time.
They'll just
when I
push
was
the.
younger.
Yeah.
I'm not a drinker.
that doesn't,
I'm not a good drinker. But I knew,
Two or
but,
three.
and my husband is just shaking his head because he knows I'm not gonna offend this woman. He knows I'm gonna drink this. He knows I'm
did you
not
help
gonna
me out?
No, he didn't. He had his own,
We do.
but I drank it and think of it, we only had a short distance to go. Drive back.
It can be, it can be
Lies.
live demonstration, right?
Yeah, that.
2:30,
Is that because?
when you're watching it every day,
We could have our.
you just take a time out.
Yes.
Yeah,
That would be nice.
Some pub or
Yeah.
bar.
Yeah. yeah,
Too well in
That's
one.
down there.
yeah. All that, yeah,
Some of them.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think that'd be kind of fun.
And I don't know, for some reason, I don't, I'm sure I'm not gonna go to France. or
She's training over
any
it.
of that, but I wanna go back to Ireland before I.
Yeah.
I've just been through the airport in Dublin.
See, but the thing is,
So you've been to Ireland too?
Yeah. In Scotland,
Every,
Oh,
okay.
2 years
Except
ago.
for me.
It
might have been like the youth. Yeah. You know,
Oh, okay.
Jada and I.
You have traveled quite a bit.
Well, I just started, actually.
Do you have any?
flew.
I have one. It's very
Oh,
embarrassing.
yes. Wow.
Dolphin and
We,
big.
we are doing a lot
No,
of
so it looks
traveling
like somebody
now
will-
because of my husband.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Be
Be able to do it.
Be able to.
Yeah.
I think it was like 19 when I got it.
We're gonna go to Munich here.
Things happen to your body. Yeah. Chair Bonaprise, Supervisor Pritchard wanted me to give this to you. He came across,
Two great big
They
trips
may
like
not
that.
have that.
I don't know where I got it, but something that.
Good,
they're-
cute.
Need a break.
Yeah, something that they're doing in
I
New York.
know it.
City.
I know
Yeah,
it
that's
says
good.
York
I-
City.
they're
I'll
going
sit there for me.
back.
Well, that's good.
I, for 5 years, I
They don't
traveled
have
every week
found
all over
it. Well,
the United States.
Having a baby.
And
Put this
outside
on
the
the
States.
in our new.
somebody-
And,
yeah, somebody.
So
The tram.
then I kind of got where I just wanted
It's
to be
just,
home.
uh,
You know, I just-
very-
I mean, I guess I used to go to Manila.
Yeah.
I was on the call center over there.
We're happy
And,
those people are.
it would
you know,
be
so willing to work.
30,
Just a
36
section
hours from the
about,
time I left my
you
house
know,
till the time I would get
What
there.
people
Because you
use
go,
the funds
fly,
for.
I could get from Minneapolis
There was
to
no
Rutgers.
mention of maybe you
Yeah.
Here.
can use
And
it
it's like
about
a
anything. If
way
you've got this formula.
You know, you'd have a
So I was
layover
kind
in
of-
Goya.
I mean, I wasn't gonna ask the
Yeah.
question.
It's another 4-hour flight into Manila.
Yeah.
And of course, it's 12 hours difference,
Most counties.
So-
But it's like that.
which worked out because I stayed on my same sleep schedule because they worked all night long. because They were working on US time. So I would go to
When
work
did you retire?
at the same
Oh,
time I would go to work here. It was just,
Helpful.
yeah. That was
I had a jet lag this summer, the worst that I've ever
uh,
had. I was so
Summary of
sick.
your
It was
life.
so not-
Yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta be able
Yeah.
to.
Yeah,
That's.
If you can.
a friend of
Pretty
mine
good.
goes to our church,
Things we've
her
seen before
husband
breaking
had
the
some business for years.
And,
And
7 inches
do
of
business
rain.
in Paris.
yeah.
And
So,
they would fly the.
yeah, we've
over
had
Paris.
everybody.
Been on the Concorde.
I think we did it over the last,
Didn't fly 'em anymore.
since it started raining
I
there.
don't know how many times.
We got an inch and then.
Boomerang.
And it was, you know, like,
Nothing
nothing to fly there, you know, it sounded really good.
I think it was every time.
Thanks, actually.
You haven't had a chance to talk to your favorite color.
They lost it.
Like this point, because that's,
When
they sent him to the restaurant.
Respiratory
Ireland.
clinic.
But he would-
They started talking. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
There at
yeah, I noticed that.
Right there, you want me to
Five,
take
but
a
big
look
bucks
at that?
fun.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
I asked for that. Very
Where's
interesting.
how are these
Oh.
papers?
But-
Are they feeling?
How can
Well, yeah, wait.
They're getting.
Yeah, I have none.
Everything is. Whatever.
Yeah.
So it actually.
He's not fun to travel like that. We did have fun on the
I talked to him.
vacation in Ireland.
And so whenever anybody complains. they'll
Yeah.
just look at this here and say, huh,
Yeah.
maybe we're paying.
There's,
Yeah.
It's amazing.
To me,
so I started a conversation with him.
Yeah. Because I remember when there was not too many years.
I will.
Drive by and it just looks so.
I just seen this morning where everything that's.
Oh, no, it's a little time.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
like.
Yeah.
Charlie does.
Oh,
Remember, also, I guess it was your cousin.
Junior in high school. That's why it would be on my radar. You weren't born yet.
I haven't-
Oh my God. Let's see, I was graduating college in
I
'95.
think he should know who we've kind of got, you know, some vision on things.
There for a year.
And
It's the perfect time to go to Oscar.
then we started on David.
So-
Started the
Our
name.
youngest daughter.
Yeah, well, I
graduation
actually-
present. Her and
I was
went
gonna-
2 weeks.
do some.
Then we got to. It was right along the border. So we went. got to
Dave drove by.
My apologies.
My homework.
Oh, I was finishing up.
I was the local, so he
People
knew.
this morning,
It was
that's why I'm
our-
late. We got our big,
So like when
we
get
got
up-
our big,
up the tree,
fishing activity, so I'm trying to kill some.
Carolee and Lisa.
Yeah. They even smell like. Smell
Nice to have that.
Yeah, yeah, so it was nice.
Yeah, I saw it on my,
Yeah.
yeah.
But, okay, where's, we had been there. So let me
By the time-
write down my data.
Oh, you in
I
college.
can see both of these, I
It's
should talk to.
interesting. Although traveling with younger people,
I charged
They're
what I
ideal.
could, and
your travel paid like.
I think if you get a chance to
Seven
talk,
o'clock in the morning, I'd be ready to go.
you know, it's a thing
Midnight.
sooner or later.
Yeah. You know, that sounds like me. Just driving.
Yeah,
Like, never think.
Say.
So if I
Have a
don't,
big demand or something. So you
depending
don't.
on what we have planned for
And
today,
then,
four days.
you know, and.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
but
Opportune site.
Well, my daughter-
It's a good location.
My daughter-in-law, I
Everybody drive by it.
her and the other daughter,
I think,
So you're
trying to get them.
I think Dale Western.
I'm getting closer.
To say the least.
They've got a lot of land on that, part, and they bought it.
Left.
Best.
We,
He failed retirement.
my daughter and I drove back up to Vienna,
That's what he.
because that's where we flew in and out of.
I
So we
am
spent
too.
the-
I am too.
We spent that, we left early in the morning, then spent that
Yeah.
day, that night.
That'd be good contact.
Stayed at it. I say,
Yeah,
yes, rest,
yeah,
right?
you know, somebody said to me the other day, she
Yeah.
said, yeah, I'm surprised you're still drawing a paycheck. And I-
Bridget went to go in the shower,
I like,
and I
you know,
turned.
and it's COVID, we're short staffed.
And then so I told her, I'm going in the shower.
You gonna do any of those
I probably.
big tournament games?
No, I can't.
30 people a week.
I can't.
so
I've got,
Somebody else has to see it.
That's pretty
Furniture.
cool that you're not having to find another doctor.
Yeah,
We got a wedding
to the doctor.
on Saturday. Friday, we're headed into grandkids.
Yeah.
Had one get out of the hospital after 3 days.
That was probably the nice, we only stayed
Where are
at.
we on Sunday?
Those 2 nights, there went the night.
Oh, lacrosse.
The day we came in, we
I
stayed
told
with
Ricky
them.
that. He said, well, just cancel those. I don't think so.
Yeah.
I said, my wife.
I'd be Ricky Doc.
Yeah, I know, well, that's, but,
So I.
Yeah, I apologize.
Week off, they're-
we have our big kinship picnic tonight.
Oh.
Fishing outing. So I was finishing up with the girls and I was trying to get done, and then I knew that there was a hearing.
That's a lot of people, isn't it?
Yeah, we've got,
Son and his
I
wife-
think we got 75 coming.
Wow.
I think that's what she told me, so, yeah, we're all ready.
Where's it at?
The Hatfield starts at 5.
And then,
Yeah, I've got hundreds.
yeah, kind of knew that.
it's nice to go. I love to go, but it's, I'm ready to
That
help.
week off.
Because we live in.
Put together money to get some.
Yeah, there's areas that I didn't like.
Go anywhere.
Okay. Let me know.
You're-
Hey, good morning.
Last year we were invited to a wedding in Colorado.
Dog. Everybody has a dog. They're supposed to pick up after their dog. Some people do.
So I said, well, the bride's grandmother wasn't gonna go.
They clean up.
We were not gonna go
You gotta
overnight.
be watching where you're stepping.
Wow. See, in New York, they come through and they
Well,
do
actually, we had
garbage
two weddings now.
from all the hotels and restaurants.
Middle of
And then after garbage trucks go through, they hose the sidewalks down.
Keep that, Bill.
Yeah.
Enjoying summer?
I was
No,
there
it's just
one
been
time.
hectic.
I used to
I-
go New York.
I said we were just finishing up tonight, or this morning with our big kinship picnic tonight.
Oh, it's-
So we got our fishing and
Hold it, hold it, I'll pull it up.
expedition for all these kids, take all these kids fishing and then our picnic, so.
Thanks for doing that.
Yeah, so I was on the phone in the morning and I'm running around picking up the rest of my stuff and donations. And
Yeah.
Pam says, I think you're gonna be late for your 9:30 meeting. Well, it won't be by at least 10 minutes.
Yes, heard about this before.
I was downstairs at the kitchen.
Perfect. You made it.
I was close, I was close.
I knew that they were.
Brought these
Just go there.
along from the,
Oh,
Yeah, I knew that, yeah. I s-
Yeah, so-
And that's normal
Yeah,
every
I
year.
actually thought about that.
This was on the 23rd.
And then, what I was considering doing, work for him.
Just amazing to hear resolution.
You know, it's something.
I have to wake up first.
You wait every day now. No,
I officially, 2 days.
okay, good for you.
The other 2 days, the other
I was
day.
on the legislature, so
Oh, sure, sure.
To catch up.
Catch up, do your reporting.
like.
I work-
here.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
I work-
They cut it up and.
Oh, my God. Dr. Vargas, I don't know about you.
That there is some type of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Not a plan.
Yeah, well, I'll leave these with you. These are the main ones. And, you know, you probably want to talk to Chloe over there.
That's what we have, like.
Kinda hate to check them.
We have,
I think they've all passed.
Using
I checked them
that.
off as we went.
this big last.
One day I did. This is the last Friday.
Big pot.
Your road trip.
Yeah, that's interesting, yeah.
And then we got 2 tomatoes.
I was pretty
We have guys.
These here run
Yeah.
Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
We went out to dinner one night.
Two
So
Wednesdays.
why are we?
I think this one here.
And
So why?
I can't believe.
This restaurant, no longer.
There.
Now, that's daylight. Are these two separate?
Yeah, these are two separate ones. What they did do
It's not.
was,
Would you like us,
come up
would you like me to call you? Because I know we're just gonna want to-
they put together, well, these are similar, so we'll have resolution.
Now, we can certainly.
This one is not
State groups do not go out alone.
Yeah, so I mean,
I help the time.
in a situation like that, or like categorize them.
What are we doing?
Right on, like, it happens.
Yeah. Saying you're gonna do this. and we're gonna make-
I think this one here is
And so
included.
I'm not saying that this will be done there, hopefully in Minnesota.
Take that one there. Take that county one, that's one I like.
Okay.
You can
So
see
it's, they're the same. Okay.
You can take it.
Right.
We didn't take any.
Here's the one that we had in Polk County.
If we.
This one,
Yeah,
I
so-
presented, in the 5 days, I presented 10 resolutions. I think 9 of them passed,
Where we know.
and I think,
Yeah, we're signing something. We're gonna send you a text message.
Yeah.
I'll send you a text message of what we're all signing.
Yeah, but my.
Okay. Or not to send one. Planning for brown times.
But he will respond, he says that in it.
John, I call him back and he, yeah, what do you want?
I just
I'm
remember.
in Arizona.
I'm just gonna, under outside, I'm just gonna talk about this cable resolution we ran through environmental services.
Should I?
I'm just gonna do it under like,
We're having a conversation with the attorney for the subject, because we're telling them.
right here.
And we end up.
You guys have site supervisors?
You know, this
Agenda?
big.
We'll hold this public hearing at 10 o'clock. When I call the meeting, we're
Number 9, please. Let's see the,
So it's just,
that one, number 9.
yeah.
I just, because it just makes sense to me.
So yeah, I'm gonna hear it.
It's nice to get flowers there to the summer. My wife has got that in hers all over. You know, I think I'm gonna take.
I was down on Big Lake today.
Abraham sits down in.
Oh, yeah?
You live by Big Lake?
Next one down.
I think she knows the next one that's down there, you know. Well, you have to have this. You have to have.
I don't a boathouse for a guy.
You should go and push the carts.
No, she goes with my.
He was down in here.
It says, can you?
How you coming on?
Yes.
Yeah, and she likes doing that.
I like
Mom, I said,
Oh,
took her in the.
The part that it's all that.
they did.
As a board.
I think that's, and her, she'll be 90.
And it's.
Quite late.
I got an idea. This is gonna be.
So we started.
Where'd she live?
Walking.
I think she has something for you to sign.
Yeah.
For,
We got.
Gotta go.
vaccination for children.
I've seen videos today. We have a big meeting.
And
My homework
See them all.
assignment.
Chris is coming to the meeting.
And,
Your homework assignment.
You read the reports, we had some questions.
Yes, all the edits they came up with.
Yeah, so,
and you're.
I'm not saying I'm not sure if that's exactly your question.
Yeah, and I think that's what I did was
I'll keep it.
And we don't have it for 20.
Yeah.
Because of our.
Well, the only thing, my question was how they break that down. Because when I went to the individual schools.
You know what I mean? That's okay.
They break it
Well,
down.
good morning, everybody. Joe Demling is here. He's,
You know, when I see a percentage like.
been waiting for King
34%,
Joe, so.
What does that mean?
Try and get.
Does that mean that is that district?
You're right on
34%?
time.
That the elementary, when I go to the website, it doesn't say 34%.
not gonna be-
And even when I take the three schools, average them out,
You're on the-
that's not 34%.
with-
So that's why I had a question. I didn't-
How are they breaking down those?
Yeah, how were they
I
breaking
wanna
down?
get a chance to talk to you. I'd love
And
to
it's not a big
understand
deal,
more about
but and I'm thinking back 100 years ago when I was at school, I had parents, we used to put that in the school, annual report at school. My parents would call, where do you get your numbers from? Oh. We.
Dr. Bill, are you ready to,
We got two.
Dr. Bill, you ready to make a motion to close the public hearing on the budget, which we started at 9:30?
Absolutely. Motion to close the
Do I
public
have a
hearing.
second? Second by Amy. All in favor, to close the public budget hearing, say aye. Aye. Close. Okay, so now we'll open our regular business meeting of the Health and Human Services,
This one we actually.
August 10th.
Okay.
Before we start the business meeting, I got a couple,
Thank you very much.
I guess, called announcements or just regular housekeeping things that we maybe get away from time to time. And the first thing I want to do myself is apologize for the protocol for speakers and anybody outside of staff it really has to be brought to our administrator and the Madam Council. Most of you are new, and we have to make sure that everybody that comes to our podium that they aren't biased, that they're screened and have approval of our administration. And I haven't done that in a couple of times that Tanya and I, although we knew some people, public, public servants like Mr. Clausen and that, I should have really always taken things to our administration for screening and approval. I mean, I've been through lawsuits in Polk County where our administrator, department heads, supervisors, where there's been some mistakes made against policy. And we had the Attorney General right up here from the state of Wisconsin years ago that said what we did wrong on probation. It's just a matter of, we need to stick to some of these housekeeping policies. I wanted to say that I should have talked to Vince and with a couple of things that they've done in the past. So,
John, can you tell us what the policy is or what? I'm sure you're referring to my request that we talked about, right?
well,
What
one
is
of
the
them
one?
was, this was brought to my attention, in, independent of, I know you and I talked lately about somebody that had in mind that wanted to explain something. And that's fine, just as long as I said we clear it with the administrators. Policy, it's policy has been explained to us. I think we have quite a booklet on policies that we're supposed to adhere to, aren't we? That would take another session. I think Malia's been trying to do that, hasn't she, as we went along?
I'm talking about just having a speaker. That was my question. That's what you're referring to. So I'm saying if somebody wants a speaker at a meeting, what's our policy? Is it to go to events?
Yes.
Committee, because you're the chair, so I went to you. So what?
Well, I think the chair controls the agenda. What I would do is ask that any presentation is make sure we kind of get a copy of it up front. And part of that is to address objectivity, because what happens is if one is coming in as biased, then we need to be prepared to say, what's the other side have to say?
So we would just have two speakers, say, for example.
Or neither speaker, depending on the credibility of them.
Like,
It's a little amorphous and a little subjective, but we'll see how this goes.
And that's why, the chair has the final say on agenda.
just take, for example, like on any of the other committees, like highway, for instance. Mo was always the speaker for a highway. If anybody was going to come and talk about any particular roads or anything, they'd have to go to him. And same thing with public works, you'd have to go to the sheriff. Oh, everything gets cleared, that we don't have anything coming in biased. It's a protocol of the county. Okay, I just wanted to get that across and see, should have done. Okay, call the order, public hearing is over with. Approve the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
And Kirk, you got a motion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Number 6, approval of the minutes of July 13th meeting.
Make a motion, we approve the minutes.
Motion is made. Any discussion on the past last month's meeting? Hearing none. Second by Supervisor Bill. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Carried. Public comments, Madam Clerk, do you have anything? You have somebody on board there?
Nope, those are all staff. It's good.
That's that person on board? Anybody for public comment? Third time, anybody for public comments? Hearing none, we will close that. Receipt of information, advisors not seated. We have our county chair and he has some information for us. I think now would be appropriate.
Sure, I'm just gonna hand this out. This is a resolution that's going on the county board agenda. And I know you guys have talked about CAFOs in this committee. I just wanted to run it by you guys. It's for information. So I just wanted to just kind of run this. I went through environmental.
You got one more, chief?
You want one, John?
Yeah.
I didn't think you cared.
Yeah. I can still read, so.
Because I got a few extras.
I appreciate that.
Sure. But you had some fancy glasses on. I didn't think you could read.
Oh, the kids' glasses. Lost mine.
So, you know, this is based on a lot of phone calls, you know, over the last few months. As the chair, I get all sides of the issues. And kind of prompted me to do this was one gentleman, young man from Frederick, at public comment on our last county board. You know, kind of challenged the county board to like do something like you lobby the state for funding. You know, why don't you guys do something, right? Because it's a CAFO issue. And we have a lot of activists and a lot of people that kind of want to just throw innuendos out, say we're rolling the red carpet out, we're not doing nothing. And I got to say, this is kind of address that, because this county board actually did something where in all the years in the county board, they'd never done nothing before. So even we ain't even had supervisors get up and say, we're not doing nothing. And so I worked with Corporation Council, and it's a lobbying resolution. The first whereas clause, it just basically talks about, you know, CAFOs potentially they could negatively impact groundwater and air quality. The second whereas clause speaks specifically to swine CAFOs, and kind of talks about have created significant fear in the community. So there's a lot of misinformation out there, and you know, just wanted to let the state know that, you know, there's a lot of people concerned about these. Third whereas clause talks about groundwater and air quality and other types of contaminants, including CAFOs. Sorry, read it. The next whereas clauses talks about that Supreme Court decision. The next whereas clauses talks about really the limited the for us as a county to regulate CAFOs. And clearly over the last year during our moratorium, we've all understood how political this is, and that the county really doesn't have the magic wand. It's really at the state level is what's key. The county can do something. And I think the fact that we did a CUP is really the strongest thing you can do, to put it on the local level and kind of, you know, and I urge all the townships too that are not zoned to get under zoning, because then that CUP would give you a layer of protection. Then the next result, the therefore be resolved. It says Polk County Board of Supervisors hereby urges the state of Wisconsin to adequately fund the Department of Natural Resources and the Department of Agriculture, Trade and Consumer Protection, so they can vigorously monitor and regulate all of the existing and future CAFOs to the fullest extent of their authority. Be it further resolved, County Board of Supervisors urges the state legislator and the governor to fully fund the various regulatory agencies so they have the resources needed to adequately monitor and regulate CAFOs. Because that's another thing we heard was people are concerned that the state really doesn't have enough people there to do this. So it's a lobbying resolution. I think it's something that still meets the county board did not want staff to spend time on this issue any longer, but it's a lobbying thing to where it really places, it really places it where it belongs, is at the state level. So it's going to the county board. Environmental Services heard it. I just wanted to run it by you guys so you understood what the resolution was before it gets.
Mr. Chair, do you want us to, Malia, I guess that would be your question. You want us to vote as,
I'm not asking for any action. It's not in your agenda. It was just a courtesy to bring it to you.
appreciate that.
Environmental Services already forwarded with a recommendation. It was 3-1 or 4-1. One supervisor voted against it. Felt like we were picking on ag again, but it's not putting legislation in place. It's not, working on it. It's just basically saying we want the government, the state to support the agencies. So it's just more information.
Just as an update, Mr. Chair, this Bayfield County had 2 resolutions at the Wisconsin Counties Association 2 weeks ago. And one of them passed and one of them didn't. And the one that didn't was written so it would be, was a general CAFO that would include dairy or beef or anything. And that one would limit the size of the CAFOs really that feed the world. And that one was voted down. Another one, the language was different. Why they had 2 of them, same subject, but the other one did pass. Got some copies of
Well, and this comes too, after the last county board meeting, we hear people stand up and say, there's legal resolutions out there, right? That we should be passing an operational ordinance. And the one that we did pass, everyone says, Eureka's and Bayfield's is all legal because it's never been challenged. And we sent that to the state and the state said it was not legal. So
correct.
There's just a lot of misinformation out there. And I know people are very passionate about this issue, but at some point we got to get the message out to the public that the misinformation people that want to keep saying that, we have to find a way to fight back a little bit because it's consuming our time, consuming our board meetings, it's consuming my phone calls, and it's all misinformation. There is no swine CAFO coming to Polk County. Last month, I got an up-to-date report. There's never even been an inquiry for one. There's not an application for one. And I just think it's just time for this misinformation to stop. So hopefully this will give us a little more opportunity at the county board to talk about it. And I plan to do that too, but just wanted to let you guys know that's what's going on, Sharon.
Just an update on the town of St. Clair Falls that has their own zoning. Their zoning ordinance already protects the town from the larger CAFOs, and because it predates the state stuff, so it's in place already. So there's not going to be.
Your town is.
Yes, our
But
town
there's
is.
about 4 townships that still are not under county zoning.
Yeah.
So they lose that protection of
CUP.
the CUP. And
Absolutely.
I think we should be, and I'm going to talk about it at our county board meeting again, on how easy is it for townships to come under county zoning. They're not going to get overregulated or whatever they're worried about, but it would give them a protection in this. So, and some of the townships like Eureka, they're doing a good job. And, if townships want more protection, they certainly can layer that in there. But the CUP process is an actual very good process. And I think that message needs to get out because when you do a CUP process, you not only have to go through local zoning, local planning committees, where you get to really vet the project, and a CUP is very gray. Bill can say, hey, you know, I don't like the driveway, and Joe can say, hey, the trees aren't right, and another person could, I mean, I don't want to come right out and say it, but it's very challenging for a business to think that they're going to come into a community and go through a CUP process because it's unknown. There's nothing written down. But when you have an operational ordinance, which some people are advocating, it's like a roadmap on here's how you can get from line A to the finish line. And to me, it's like opening the doors up to a CAFO. And having a CUP at a local level is very powerful because you got 3 or 4 local people that are going to make that decision on whether you rezone and move the zoning to Ag 20. And then you got to come to the county level then and also go through the same process. And for these companies to go in, you know, I can only use it in my business as developers. Developers do not want to go into a community to go fight the local community, put a project in, and then go fight the county. They want to go to a community that says, hey, come on in, we want you to come. And I feel the same way about this strongly, that the CUP process is the right process. And it gives us all a lot of control, and it gives us a lot of roadblocks. And no one wants a hog CAFO next to their house. No, none of us do. I can say that. You might have 1 or 2 people in the county that I say, hey, I don't care. But I don't think anyone wants these swine CAFOs coming in. And the CUP process is going to protect us. And then if we ask the state, you know, and we might have to come back to this every year and keep encouraging the state to fund these agencies to do a better job, because what I got calls on too is some of the current CAFOs that are in our county now that are dairy are like, they don't have enough staff because they make us wait till the last week to approve our renewal process. So he says, we'll be, you know, we've been running a CAFO for 10 years. Everything's fine. We get looked at, you know, 20 years old. And he goes, it takes them so long and everything's fine with our renewal process, but they wait till the last week to say, oh, hey, you've been approved. So even the CAFO people, I think, will support this, the existing ones, because I think they want to see it work better too. And I thought this really came from that young man from Frederick that wasn't a guy kicking us in the shins, wasn't a guy making up stories, accusing us of not doing our job. He just says, why don't you lobby for more funding? And I took that to heart, and that's why I did that. So
Just as a side note on townships, a week ago Monday, I went to the town of Farmington board meeting, kind of made a presentation of some advantages that they would have of joining into the our county zone. Farmington is one outside the county zone.
right.
And I said, you know, when I remember when Farmington withdrawn, and it was the year that they started the building inspection. Being on the south end of the county, the assessor would come around and hardly anybody wanted to possibly get a building permit. So what the reason why it was that then they established you get your building permits right here. But that's long ago, so now we need to present.
It's time for us to re-engage these guys to get them on
Exactly.
board.
I
don't know why they won't.
Just old ways.
Dr. Blanc, did you have a
Well, I
question?
had the same question. I mean, what's the rationale for the resistance?
I think it's just the good old boys just don't want a
Exactly.
big brother to tell them what to do. That's all it is. Be honest.
Well, we see that in health.
You're right.
Yeah, that's all it is. It's generations of guys saying we don't want the county telling us what to do.
Right answer, Farmington, isn't it, Joe?
Yeah.
So we're gonna talk about it again at the county board. I'm sure there'll be a discussion about this. You know, I'm sure there'll be people saying, oh, it's not going far enough. But it's just purely a lobbying resolution is what it is. And I think it gives us a path to kind of address some of the local people's concern. And the people that regulate CAFOs are the state, not the counties. We need to keep working with the state, just like we do on highways and just like we do on everything else. If it's an important issue for us, we need to get the county association behind us. And we've got some resolutions that are making it to the legislator because we worked hard on them now.
I'll give you an example in that on this Wisconsin counties here. On the 5 days I was there, I presented 10 resolutions from Polk County. And they were all generated of our staff. This is a credit to the staff and how hard our staff is working. I believe 9 of them passed. One was referred back to the board of directors. And just a kind of a short note on that one where you have all these whereases. That one was, whereas we petitioned the state legislature to provide funding for database for individuals on drug prosecution. And they referred it back to the board because there was a lot of judicial people that felt that that was an infringement on people's rights.
We're doing that at the county board level right now with what Chad's doing for us.
Correct.
Yeah.
Now, it wasn't postponed, it went back to board of directors. So it will come back with some retuning. Amy?
I just wanted to loop back on the comments that we heard from the last, public comments at the last board meeting. And I think the important thing for us, the supervisors, to know is the nuance of this CAFO thing is not necessarily that we have a CAFO permit being pulled in Polk County. That's not what people are worried about. It's that there's a border CAFO in which the corporations that own it are looking at surrounding lands on which to put manure. And that's the issue that I think I hear the most about, is not that there's the main birthing barn, and there's these feeder. There's, 5 to 9 barns, supporting barns that any main CAFO, like the one that the 26,000 one that they're proposing on. So it's not just that there's no permits here. There won't be any permit in Polk, but there are permits in Burnett. So it's a fine nuance that the public is talking to us about, and it's not a misinformation component. It's just a sort of nuance that's an important thing for us to know, because the impact will be within our county. So we don't have a permit here, but we will have the manure spread on our fields. We will have the associated fattening barns, whatever you call them. The feeder pigs will go into their barns. So that's the component that I think people are asking us.
I mean, that would all have to go under the county, or that would all have to go under the permitting process out of Baltimore.
Exactly, John, and I would like to address that, because that, again, that's the misinformation.
There it is.
Because if you can give me a piece of paper, which no one can, they can stand up and say, well, this is common. They got no specific addresses. They got nothing that is from the state of Wisconsin that requires, when that CAFO does get permitted in Burnett County, when it finally meets all the state standards, it has to meet state. The state monitors it. The state will have the locations where the manure is spread. So this idea that it's coming into Polk County, no one knows that. That's just talk. There's nothing factual about that statement from public at all, unless you can show it to us. Show us the locations, and this is the part where I believe the activists in our county are trying to spread misinformation, because there is no facts to those comments, Amy. 0 facts. So it's a nuance. Then show us it.
Well,
If you got it, then show it.
We aren't gonna have a
I know,
dialogue.
the next board meeting, let's put that on you to bring us the facts, to show us where those locations are, and then maybe we could do something about it. But when people stand up and say things like this, it's just talk. And
Jeff Jones from Baldwin stood right up there.
yeah,
And he said he's got control of every acre of every farmer where they can.
people are scared about
it.
it. People, I agree, are scared about that comment, Amy, and that concern. But it's like what's going on with vaccines right now. Why isn't everyone vaccinated? Because there's a group of people that scare everybody, that say they're bad. And I put the CAFO activists in that same camp as those people. Is you can create whatever story you want to scare people. And I'll just leave it at that. So that was all I wanted to talk to you about, Chair. Thanks.
So, I touch a little bit on the 5 days of the Wisconsin Counties Association. And I turned some of our resolutions over to Tanya. And that was a big thing. I think I made 10 presentations, 9 of them got passed, and two of those days, last week ago, Friday, was a solid day on health and human services. And we have a extremely conservative state legislature in Wisconsin. So the whole main purpose of it is to keep on lobbying through resolutions to the legislature to fund adequate funding. Like, for instance, about 3 years ago, something like that, the legislature pretty much gutted the child support. And we went down to Madison and we met with some legislatures. And this year, I think for child support, I believe Governor Evers had 90 million in his proposal. And I think the legislature settled with 33. So just want to congratulate the staff. That's the way it works to get anything done at all. We need to work the state and federal funds. Okay, moving on to our agenda.
Number 10?
COVID update. Okay, boss lady, hope you got some good news.
Not, I don't have great news whatsoever. So I will start out with our July positive case total was a total of 26 cases that we had. Yesterday, we exceeded that alone with 28 positive cases. So for the month of August, we're at 45 positive cases in the first week and a half. So we are definitely surging. From the last time I saw you guys, we were at 0.43% positivity in the county. We are now at 9.33%, which we're above 5. So that means we do have community spread going on. The state also increased to 7.4% positivity. Some good news is that our vaccine total for the month of July was 176 total doses. In the last week and a half for August, we gave out 138 doses. So our vaccination rate has increased within the last week and a half, which is great news. We did have a very successful day last week, Wednesday at Menards off of Highway 8. We had 68 doses given out and 31 doses were of Pfizer. We just started giving out Pfizer as well. And of those 31 doses, 15 were kids 12 and older. So we are seeing an increase for Pfizer. So starting today for our walk-in clinics, we have all 3 vaccines available, Moderna, Pfizer, and J&J. Our mobile clinic started last week at the end of July with all 3 vaccines. So we are still ramping up, looking for more areas to go with our mobile clinics and looking to extend to more places in the fall. So cases are definitely rising. We have known Delta variant in our community, in our region, that is more contagious than previous variants. So per the CDC, with our increase of cases, we are at a substantial transmission rate, and I foresee by the end of today or tomorrow that we will be in the high transmission rates. So we will need to be looking at our best health practices for reducing spread in our community, and we will be working on a new marketing strategy to try to get people vaccinated as well. With our total vaccines since the beginning, we have, not including our drive-through, we have given out 952 doses at our mobile clinic. 353 were Moderna, 506 are J&J, and so far in the last week and a half, we've given out 93 Pfizer. So that's really, really great. Our walk-in clinics, we've given out 58 for the total of July, 26 in addition were just last week, Tuesday. So again, that's great. We currently offer testing Monday and Wednesdays. We are looking to increase to 5 days a week. Total, we have given out 245 tests with only 28 positive. Yesterday, I believe we had 20 people come in to get tested. I don't have the results yet. So that was an increase. Most of our local partners, hospital partners, do require an appointment to be made for testing and vaccination, so they can charge for that office visit. So there will probably be more demand from public health to offer free testing and free vaccination. So with everything, we are revamping our COVID strategy and staffing, and hopefully to finalize that by the end of this week, so we can plan for our surge happening. And that will also include what happens with our schools and when schools come back in session.
So you're saying none of the tests that have been done so far, none of them show the Delta? You're able to define whether it's Delta or?
I can't tell specifically from our test, but the State Lab of Hygiene has analyzed the test results throughout the state. And I believe the last percentage was 93% of all new COVID cases tested are the Delta variant. So to say it's in our state is 100% accurate that it's here.
Are we still regarding from the state the high risk, or is that?
Right now, I haven't looked at the state's website. I've been tracking the CDC. It's just a little bit more user friendly, but we are substantial with CDC, and I foresee tomorrow will be at high risk.
I think the key to this, and you mentioned it, you're trying to increase availability. I got a call last night from a lady, Barbara Mills, St. Croix Falls. I know the lady. She lived in Polk County. She's in the healthcare business. And then she lived in Hudson for a while, and now she came back to St. Croix Falls. And she said, we have to look at more availability, like if some of these clinics could be till 8 o'clock at night, so people.
Yeah.
could
That's
stop
one of our
after work.
plans, is to have one night a week where we go into the evening.
At least one night a week.
And then if that for testing, we are doing that. And most of our mobile clinics do have a variable hours. We do morning, and like on Friday, we're going to be in Clayton until 7 to 6. And then we'll
So 4:30, and then we're heading up to rural Amory for all time. So we'll be in their parking lot at 6.
offer a variety of different times.
And this is what we're looking for. We gotta listen to the public. And she said, with the crisis we're in right now somehow, and she offered to help. And I know it puts a lot of pressure on your staff, but I think you're pretty shocked about the amazing, volunteers we've had. Rita's one that's something, she's done some of.
You want to pass her name on to us? We can make contact.
Yeah, she left her phone number at home. But she said, yeah, if, I know, right on Highway 35 at the frontier, you set up a tent one day. That was well attended with people just driving by. But she suggested, churches or public events, and I apologized to her that we couldn't have it at the county fair. But our availability.
So what we found throughout the mobile clinics is that at your events, like your community fair or your whatever days, each community has their own days. People aren't out to get the shots at those. It's more of your pop-ups, Menards parking lot, the Frontier Egg. So we're getting more vaccines out of those types of settings. So that's, we're switching gears to be more, just happen to be where you are, and we'll vaccinate you for free rather than, go to the Turtle Lake Community Fair to get your vaccine. That we didn't have good luck with that.
No, it's more of like, oh, I think this wasn't out of my way. I was coming here for something, saw you, I'm going to get vaccinated and go on my day. So that's where we're
Finally trying to pick up plywood.
I know you've been trying to contact some of the migrant farm workers.
We're still working on that. I believe we went.
Are you trying to get them to come into the clinic, or have you?
We go to the farm. We actually vaccinate on site, and we do it during their lunch break. So they work with their employer, and we have like a 2-hour time period so people can, so they don't have to interrupt their work duties. It's worked out very, very well. I believe we're up to 5 farms. I think we went to our 5th farm last week.
That's an awesome benefit.
Oh, there's one
There's
tomorrow.
one tomorrow as well.
And how many vaccines have you given out in those locations?
I would have to get that. It's all lumped in together, but each time we go, we get about 15 to 20 people to participate, and it's typically J&J, so it's the one and done, which is still fantastic. But they are offered all 3 times now.
Is there anything that could be sent out as a county news? The negativity out there that you hear from people is just disaster.
Well, I think that the Delta variant has changed people's opinions maybe somewhat, and that's where we're seeing more vaccination happening. It's, with the positive cases coming, it's a little bit alarming to us that, and probably to the public if they're watching it, that vaccination might be.
Any comments from any supervisors? I mean, we'll take as much time as we can on this.
What percentage of county employees are vaccinated?
We're guessing about 50%, but that's something we can't really ask because it's going to be executive information.
Jane, do you have a marketing ploy that you're gonna use for the 8 schools in the county for 12 and up? Try to get them to get
So,
vaccinated?
We are working with our schools. Our schools are pretty much firm about we're not letting us to vaccinate on site at schools,
In
but
the
they,
parking lots.
not anywhere on school grounds, so we have to be conscious of that, but they are willing to spread any, or not spread, but share any information with their parents and staff. So we're going to up some of our materials that we're sending to parents, and we're working with our marketing specialists on that, but we are making specific messaging for that age group.
Well, at Unity, they could walk over to Unity.
Yeah, they could, but they have to pay for an office call. I want it free.
Exactly.
What's the rationale for not being able to go in this?
It definitely comes down to very politicalness and keep the school board's needs and just like the parents, and it's everybody's opinions that come into play. So the school boards or the schools would like to make sure they're neutral sites, which we can work with as long as they're still communicating with us.
Vince, do you have any comments on county marketing?
Well, I think Tanya and Jean have really ramped up their creativity and extra efforts to market this into new populations in the county. People that aren't getting vaccinated, we're trying to find those pockets. And so we are doing things with businesses, different organizations, different locations. We're trying to commandeer the highway signs from the state, which they have regulations against that. We're going to do everything we can in a semi-legal way.
No, I'm joking.
The Corporation Council, we're trying to get the word out there as much as we can.
That's recorded.
Laughing. So is there anything we can do with this question that Arnie brought up about staff vaccination rates at 50%?
And that's just the guesstimate because we can't really ask.
I know.
staff.
And I know it's a sensitive subject, but with this Delta walking around vaccines, and Tanya has repeatedly reminded us that the vaccines aren't 100%, that this Delta is an interesting variant in that it's more aggressive, it's more contagious, it attacks faster, you get sicker. And it's, people who are vaccinated get exposed, it has to do with dosing. So, not having, is there any kind of education that you can put out? Just another.
Yeah, I think we could do some marketing and blasting out email facts about the
It's
Delta
new.
variant.
Like, this is new. It's a different world order right now, and we're heading into a different scenario.
Yeah, even the people who have been, had COVID with the alpha variety, they may not have antibodies to protect them from the delta virus. So even people
Rita, you got a comment?
could be
Well-
vaccinated.
Yeah, I just wanted to say in the marketing push, somebody will latch onto this idea of, well, you can still get it with the vaccine. And then that becomes a deterrent. And I would like to emphasize that less, because you're going to get less sick.
Right.
Vaccine is the answer. I mean, the only answer we have.
I think that's out there already.
Well, that's out there.
And we're
that's
seeing
why
breakthrough, but the breakthrough is not as
You
severe.
don't get hospitalized and you don't get a
It's
sick.
still
Yeah,
saving
you
your
might
life.
get it.
You don't die.
Yeah.
still, your best bet is the vaccine, and that's what we have to emphasize. You know,
Bill, so Malia, just kind of taxing your brain here a little bit. So, everybody watches the news, in one form or another. So you have public funded educational facilities like the U of M, and I'm thinking across the border and over here, where they require staff and students to get the vaccine. That's a requirement from a publicly funded entity. So what's the difference between a government entity and that public funded entity to say to the employees, you need to be vaccinated to come to work?
As long as you allow for a religious or
And I
medical
understand
and
that.
medical exemption, an employer, including a public employer, could require that legally.
And I know that, the reason I asked the question is because we were just commenting about, a school having a public parking lot. In reality, it's parking for the public, but it's still school property. And they can maintain that based on school board policy, much like you do here for a public parking facility in front of the government center or in front of the courthouse. But when it comes to that vaccine policy, how many of those, and I understand that that's private information, but that medical and religious sign off, and I remember the schools, you're not going to get very many of those. You're going to get a small percentage because the onus of responsibility is on the parent to get that. And then they refuse to bring it in. Well, if you refuse to bring it in, we don't have to let you back into school.
Or you can file for a CHIPS action and.
Correct. So I don't want to sound harsh, but I'm saying, if you're saying you're guessing at 50%, let's roll with this and say, let's get them vaccinated.
But I think at that point, I mean, that's where the question of who decides whether or not that is a policy the county is going to have as an employer. Because it's not going to be public
no.
health individually.
That's going to come through the county administrator and the board.
Board.
Absolutely. You're going to be writing a resolution or a proclamation or whatever you may call it. But I know, and that's a tough decision. Like Amy, that's a pretty emotional situation for somebody. Do I get vaccinated? Do I go to work? Am I going to lose my job? And that's no different than being unionized. Do I join a union? Don't I join a union? And what are the pros and
It's as
cons?
political as a union.
It's political. But, I think that you have to send a message someplace.
Somehow that message.
Somehow that message has got to get out.
Rita, you got another comment?
every place I've ever worked, I was required to have the hepatitis B series, to have the MMR, to have the mantle. I couldn't work in my career without those vaccinations. They were required. My employer required them, or I didn't get to work there. And I think we can do that without it being a social estate. You know what I mean? This is just part of working, and protecting the greater-
I've worked in a lot of places. I've never had an employer require any vaccinations for me, ever.
As a nurse?
Yeah, that's, you were a nurse in the health industry, I
Right,
understand it.
Right.
But in general, I've never known an employer to
Well, you don't
mandate
work with
vaccination.
intimate contact with the public.
And I understand it in the healthcare.
But we do.
I
Fran, you
understand.
got a comment?
Well, I'm just gonna say, when I started kindergarten 50 years ago, 50, whatever. Yeah. So make me think about it.
How about when I started 80 years ago? I couldn't go to school unless you couldn't go to school unless the county nurse came down and vaccinated.
You had to show your vaccination
Yeah.
records in order to go to school. And I guess I don't know how that works. I respect people having beliefs that are different than mine, and they have a right to do that, but I don't understand what the difference is between this vaccination and the vaccinations that are socially acceptable.
Well, this vaccination, for one thing, hasn't been, and I'm not anti-vax.
Yeah,
I'm just being the,
devil's advocate.
Yeah.
Sure.
it's not approved by the FDA yet.
Well, that's
It will
only
be
because of the
soon.
paperwork. It's approved for safety. It's not approved for all the steps they go through with the
Yep,
FDA.
it's not approved
Because
by the
it's a
FDA.
time constraint, but it will be, and I wish it would be pretty soon. Would help. Because
That would help.
that's
Yeah.
used as an excuse and it's meaningless, but it's been used as an.
If FDA approval is meaningless, why do they have it?
Well, I mean, it's meaningless for safety. For safety. They're not approving it for safety. They're approving it for all the other things that they have to do, marketing and all the rest.
Okay, Jane, we thank you and I appreciate your open discussion. So, did you have anything else?
There are still immunizations required for school-aged children. COVID and the flu are not part of that legislation with the state, which makes it different why we can't require it. It does come down to policy. So just, there are still immunizations
you for
required,
clarifying
and that
that.
those
Yeah.
immunizations require kids to get in school. So we do work in public health to send out a letter and work with parents to make sure they get those children vaccinated.
Just to share a recent experience, and I'm not suggesting, so don't get me wrong, I'm not suggesting in any way that this is the way it should be here. But just for a comparison, I just got home from France, and there you can't enter public spaces with more than 50 people, or now like restaurants or whatever, without showing that you've been vaccinated. And people are like, it's no big deal. They don't care. They just, and I'm not saying, yeah, well, they just show their little card, says they've been vaccinated, and I'm not suggesting it should be that way here, but people accept that if I want to do this, I got to follow the rule. And if I don't want to follow the rule, well, then I don't get to do it.
Thank you, Grant. Jeannie, you're about done with your presentation?
I only,
Just a quickie on the community health. Little update.
our community health improvement plan, we are working with our local hospital partners. So that's Osceola, Amory, which I think is Health Partners, and then St. Croix. They are working on their community health assessments, and they are working on focus groups. And public health is going to take their knowledge and expand it. So we're going to work on a more cohesive plan for the community.
You're still happy to be in Polk County and we're happy to have you.
Thanks. I'm so happy to be here. So.
Thank you much. Okay, moving on, number 12. And Amy, I don't know anything about your presentation here, but the way it's written here,
No, it's not going to be a presentation.
oh, because that was a
No, no, no.
confusing, any presentation would have to come from our, from the Supreme Court decision would have to come from Malia or our administrator. And first, I'm going to ask them if either one of you have any comments on the Supreme Court, being she's got it listed as,
I think it was a substantial decision, and I know I'd ask Malia to take a quick look at it and could give a brief overview of it.
Sure, it basically was a case, two cases, and the decision fundamentally stands for the premise that the DNR has more authority to implement specific conditions on CAFOs based upon the information that they have about that specific CAFO. How that applies, I think, in Polk County, because we have a conditional use, I think it would give us a much stronger argument here at the county level when and if we ever did have an application for a CUP for a CAFO to implement same and similar type regulations. In this one, it was groundwater testing. It was a limit on total animal units. And so extrapolating from that case, because before the belief was that the DNR only had the authority if the statute explicitly said, DNR, you can regulate this very specific thing. The Supreme Court, in a decision that joined one of the conservatives with the others, basically said you actually, as the DNR, have the explicit authority because of the nature of the data that came before these specific CAFO applications. And so I do think that it does empower the DNR and trickle down at the county level to have stronger conditions and specific conditions if and when we ever did have an application for a conditional use here.
I got one question. I do have a degree from WITC, but not on a law degree. What was that word extrapolating?
Extrapolate, like taking information and then whittling it down so that you come to a conclusion on a different issue.
It wasn't included by 8 years of country school.
I said that's a chemistry term.
Thank you for that information. We want everybody to be clear.
Is there another condition? Another ruling? I mean, separate rulings, right? It was two separate cases that were combined for a decision. But those were the two things that they were allowed.
Was this a county case?
Groundwater testing and limiting our family unit. Okay.
There was some high capacity well component to that also that I didn't completely understand. And my main thing was not to put you on the hot seat today, was just to talk about having the speaker come and give us more details on that. That's all this.
On the well? On the high capacity?
No, on the Supreme Court ruling. Just an update, just an information gathering piece. That's all I wanted to hear, because I was thinking, oh, well, we're doing groundwater testing in our county. We have this on the horizon. How does this all interface? And that's helpful that you've already thought how that interfaces with the CUP. That's interesting.
Well, and the other thing that was really, I mean, and this is more anecdotal about reading the Supreme Court decision. You know, when we're dealing with the DNR specifically, it was internally at the DNR where their pendulum swung from handling the situation one way to flipping and going, just kidding, no, now we're handling it this way. And I just found that interesting.
I can make one more comment. This was brought up at our Wisconsin Counties Association. And when your Supreme Court makes a decision, each one of the justices has to write a memoir. That's the word. The reasoning, their decision, so public can understand it. And those haven't all been done or reviewed yet. So there'll be a lot more information coming as to some clarification why this judge went this way. It wasn't a unanimous decision.
My question was, following up on yours and my conversation, was do we want to have a presentation on this at this committee because it's a public health issue or not?
By who?
Presentation by who? This would be, well, the only person that argued it is the Wisconsin Environmental Advocates. We could also have Wisconsin Counties Association. Andy would probably have an opinion on something.
There will be some opinions coming from Wisconsin counties, and that was the decision that was made, that they want to see these memoirs of the judges, why they voted this and that. And
So they're going to digest it and then they're going to put something out for us.
correct, yeah, they'll be digesting. So until some of these things are, this decision is new, like it's new for you to review. And so let's give this some time. And
I think that's where perhaps Mr. Nelson's resolution kind of comes into play, because I think the risk you run, this decision was based on an analysis of a law that the DNR presumed precluded them from these more specific regulations of CAFOs. And so that if the legislature's intent was to have that, you could have a legislative correction. In other words, the legislature could come back and say, well, okay, Supreme Court, you're saying that the statute does allow the DNR. Now we're going to really make it explicit that it doesn't. I mean, that's where that lobbying at the state level, that's where the regulations, I mean, if there's a shift back by the large agricultural industry, it would be lobbying the legislature to say, hey, we didn't like this decision, fix the statute going into the future so that this is no longer the way we're going to legally read the power of the DNR. So that's where a resolution like the lobbying one is basically saying, please don't do that.
That's kind of the key to Wisconsin Counties Association. They have a staff of lawyers. And all these resolutions that were brought to the body, they've passed them. Some of them were just, well, this one's out of order because it does not pass. Everything has to be some way that it can affect everybody in the state. You can't have a resolution for the state to pass that'll just benefit the people in Polk County, not the purpose of it. And so then they would say, no, this is out of order. Here's one of them. That was passed, authorizing and lobbying the legislation. Wisconsin state legislature to create community-based inpatient, outpatient substance abuse treatment facility. And this is a Polk County resolution, and like that one is backed by all the sheriffs and our health and human services. We're all working together because we need to have a someplace in the area from here to Eau Claire or something. So if every transport that comes from every county, it takes somebody from the sheriff's department for mileage, it takes their personnel and everything. And from here to Winnebago, I remember when we had a legislature conference in Richmond, and Sheriff Knudsen from St. Clair County broke down in tears. He said, I cannot staff enough people for transportation to facilities outside the county. Kind of some information coming out of this that I want you people.
Well,
Okay.
I think that, John, and my comment would be that, that actually, that passed the legislature a couple of sessions.
It has, and the key to that, Dr. Lund, good thing you brought that, it passed the legislature to build a facility, but the legislature could not fund the money to operate. They've now finally came up with the money. Yeah, we need a regional facility, but we don't have enough money to operate it.
So our assembly person, Mike Casey, actually was author of that, one of the authors of the bill in
to
the
fund it.
assembly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was a joint bipartisan between Magna Fisi and our Democratic Bob Staffold.
Yeah. So we need them to urge them to again. Well, I don't know where that is, so I don't know if there's a bill currently in the legislature.
There is. And that's why this level of Wisconsin counties, that Polk County is pretty well recognized right now with the presentations that I had. And so we need support from, the other part of the state to help this part of the state get the funding to meet our needs.
The way I read this, Supervisor Nelson, Chair Nelson's resolution is that if there's going to be money created at the state level, some of it comes up here so we can beef up treatment facilities in this area. Is that the intent? The other assembly bills are to create that mental health Chapter 51 emergency crisis beds at the Eau Claire and Chippewa sites that it's been brewing for the last couple of years. It's been shot down each time. So I think there's two different types of facilities going, but we support both. Because we do need more treatment facilities up here and emergency beds for people who are in crisis. So two separate tracks. And we
Under that
strongly
51
support
bill,
both.
they can, law enforcement basically makes the decision if somebody is out of control, needs our whole to be evaluated. And if Sacred Heart is full,
They always go the closest. Unfortunately, lately, it's been to Winnebago because they don't have a maximum capacity, even though we will get emails from them from time to time saying, we really are really full. So if you can divert, please divert, but it's just a problem statewide, and especially in this area because we don't have those beds here.
I believe the law is like in our local, like in our jail, anybody under 18 can't be out for 24 hours, and they have to be transported.
For a child emergency detention?
72.
Yeah, it's, we work through that with Corporation
The
Counsel.
jail
It's in
would
the-
never house somebody who's on an emergency detention.
I missed how we got CAFOs to this topic.
Well,
I'm confused.
Yeah.
we need to get
Yeah.
back to it.
Yeah.
One other comment,
Back to Kate.
Mr. Chair. So Malia, what I'm getting from what you were saying is that the DNR has basically been upheld by the Wisconsin Supreme Court on the existing laws that they have regarding CAFOs. They haven't, there is no new legislation or new statutory requirements. They're just upholding what the DNR can do and expanding their explanation.
The DNR was actually the one that said, ultimately just changed their mind and said, no, we can't regulate the
Right.
way that the ALJ, the administrative law just said
The
that they
Supreme
needed.
Court said that they could.
Right, and then the Supreme Court said, no, you can, and here's important.
Okay, and then the other part of that, I guess the other gist that I got out of that was that it was a majority and a minority of the court. It wasn't a unanimous decision.
You had one who did not take part in the decision, and then you had the three,
Okay, so, and then there will be more information coming out from those justices based on majority and minority opinions, which we will be able to read from a transcript. They're out already?
yeah, all of
Yeah, I have
their
not seen those
opinions
yet.
and dissenting opinions have been, I don't know if they've formally been published, but they're out. They're out
Okay,
there. I don't know if they've
because I was
been-
looking for them and I haven't seen them yet, so I wanted to read them.
Get them to you.
I haven't seen them either, Bill.
How about if we pull
Thanks for
together some
reading.
stuff? Leah, can you help me with that? And then like a packet, we get it out to these guys?
About summarizing the case and what
Yeah.
the, sure.
Like with the Wisconsin counties piece and the people that argued it, like, I don't know, some sort of something.
I thought that was your intent.
Yeah, that was all my intent was, it wasn't a presentation and I just wanted them to talk about it because I'm not a lawyer. So I just wanted the people who argued it to present it to us. But if people feel like the written is enough, what?
You can read those
Yeah.
opinions.
Yeah, so that's, good. I'm good with that.
Okay, Tanya, do you want to move on to number 13? I think we've got that covered.
Yes.
Thanks for the discussion from you. I get a little bit off of some references on this page. But at least we're bringing the information that we need. I feel that's important.
Okay, so number 13, we are not increasing our fees at all in community services. And we do not have any current leases, so we don't have to worry about that piece of it. And I don't believe that there's leases in child support, veterans, or Golden Age Manor have lease agreements. I don't think there's any.
Not that I'm aware of.
Not that we're aware of. And we should be aware of them, but as far as fee schedules for community services, we're flat. Yeah, do you know, there's no fees for child support, so.
There are fees for child support. They're staying the same. It's really just a fee that's charged if somebody who does not have a 4D case, so a case where there's no economic support benefits are involved, parents order, we're not enforcing the order. If they want us to do something like send an income withholding to an employer, we charge a small fee for that. Or we tell them, apply for services and we'll do it for free. So we almost never actually charge the fee that's on the books. And then there's also, it's a corp counsel fee, but if we ever end up doing a guardianship or protective placement case in an emergency situation for somebody who has means, in other words, somebody who is not indigent, we charge them a flat fee of $300.
But there isn't anything we need to be changed to the county board.
Correct.
We got that covered. 14, identify subject matters for September meeting. September 14th.
So
I think you'll pretty much have the,
we have the presentation of the 2022 budget. COVID-19 update, nuisance ordinance, but I think that was something from a long time ago. I need to follow up on that one to see where.
Yeah, we kind of dropped that one.
Yeah, and then Golden Age Manor, child support, veterans do mid-year reports. UW Extension has requested to come and talk to us about the services they provide. And then if there is a legislative event report, we will give that as well.
now, August was our public hearing, which
Yep.
we had from 9:30 to 10. So then at our September meeting, we will be voting as a body here on,
We'll present you the budget and then you guys have the chance to bring any amendments back to.
Comment.
so we won't be having a committee vote.
So,
No.
informational.
Just want to clarify that for the agenda.
And there is a typo on our work plan. It's the 2022 budget.
Yeah, one more question.
Well, can we, I think if Malia and I can pull this packet together, we could present, if there is anything that you feel like.
That can be part of the.
Hand it.
I've got the decision and all the dissents and the concurrences and everything. Should I just email this to everybody on this?
Yeah, that would, yeah.
Any comments from any other supervisors before we adjourn?
So did you want that on the agenda or not?
Yeah. Okay, everybody stay healthy and thanks for the information from everyone.
Make the motion to adjourn.
Motion by Supervisor Kelly.
She needs a motion.
I need a motion.
Grant Super second.
Oh, I did make a motion.
No discussion on adjournment. All in favor, say aye. Have a good, safe week. Stay healthy. Really, you got a few minutes?
Oh, hit them straight. I got a question.
I know, I gotta get updates from John. Jesus, God, man.
We're
family.
Family They're doing that by our house too.
Okay, so it is, yeah.
So how you feeling? Me still bothering you.
I believe it's five.
Oh, he said
It's the same
sometime.
times that have been working now by our
I'm
house.
thinking about it one
So-
day.
For Lakeland, yes, for Lakeland, and I talked to Lakeland, but they aren't coming down into.